Need me to mute this, let me know.
This is Sheridan's 2018 facility plan meeting with the State Construction Department, the School Facilities Division thereof, and we'll introduce ourselves first.
Amber Leach, Planning.
Troy Decker, Planning.
Okay, I guess I'll Charlie Kaufman, Planning.
Mather Slake, Sheridan 2 Facilities Director.
Roxy Tapp, Sheridan 2 Business Manager.
Bob Herzog, SFD Project Manager.
Scott Stoltz, Assistant Superintendent, District 2.
Lori Walsh, Operations Support, Sheridan 2.
All right, well, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. We appreciate your hard work on this facility plan template with Amber. We changed this several years ago where we do the majority of the busy work on the front end of this, and then we really get into the nuts and bolts of the discussion during this meeting. So as I go through this, I am going to go through the parts that we've already confirmed. We've solidified our data. We've confirmed that we have accurate information. So we don't really need to say anything on those unless you want to. Please speak up. Other than that, we'll go on, and then when we get to the parts that are really what I think we all want to discuss more thoroughly, we'll slow down and really have a good discussion during that time. So with that, then, I'm going to go ahead and I just wanted to show our video camera. You can see our screen?
Yes.
Great. I'm going to turn off the video camera because we have some streaming issues periodically. So it's not because Charlie isn't good looking or anything. It's just we want to make sure the video runs smoothly.
All right. Fair enough.
Hey, it's not picking on me.
Okay, so with that then, obviously we do facility planning to abide by state statute. We need to review things, specific things within facility planning, and this facility plan does that. We do appreciate you guys joining us in video and certainly in person. We always enjoy having people here in person as they're going through and monitoring the legislative session in Cheyenne. Their availability just as here in person, so that's great. We will remove Craig and Brandon if they don't join us, and I'll do that at the end of the meeting, or we'll un-yellow highlight them. So with the formalities then, tracts and deeds, these are really important for your block grant payments for the groundskeepers. We understand that there's I think it was Senate File 117.
Yes, 117.
That has been added, just brought to our attention just lately, that will remove some of the funding based on your acreage with regard to tracts of land that don't have buildings upon them, or not being used, I think, directly for school use in some way, shape, or form. So we need to look at that still. You may be aware of that, but we understand that that is being considered by the legislature. And then this number would then, these numbers, if you have a tract of land that doesn't have a building or something on it, used for school purposes or whatever, that information would flow over to WDE, but they probably, well, they would not pay you for that acreage with regard to groundskeeper. So that's something you might want to look at too. I haven't personally looked at that. We only found that out yesterday afternoon. Okay, so anyway, these acreages are important, obviously, because they help you get money through WD.
Sorry, you
Go ahead.
removed the, you have that future facility for on the college track, but the Fleming Boulevard, the old Woodland, is that what we exchanged for that?
It hasn't been exchanged yet, so
Okay.
this is accurate as of today.
Okay.
And we put that in our notes.
Right. Okay.
Well, when is that looking to go through Fleming Boulevard? I know that's where the old Woodland Park is at.
The college board is meeting on the 22nd of March, I believe.
Okay.
And then I'll be presenting, well, you guys will be presenting at the next SFC meeting to get that approved.
Okay.
And then,
All right, yeah,
so I would think April.
it's going to be towards south end of town.
I don't know Sheridan as well as I probably should. Where's the college at?
South. See where it says bus barn, just south of there, yeah. And then
There you go. See, I have it pinned, the Fleming Boulevard.
Oh.
I've had to do some background work on this one as well.
So this is owned by the district here.
Correct.
Okay,
So the Old Woodland Park is right next door to that,
okay.
and that was sold to a church, I believe?
Right here?
Yes.
Yeah, we split the property in half,
West
so then that's that part, yeah.
Okay, and then they do have, there is a modular, is there still a modular there?
Yeah.
Okay, there was, yeah, there's still a modular there.
Oh, okay. So you guys have been harvesting alfalfa on it?
Grass.
Grass hay, native grass. Okay, the college is where?
To the north of that.
Oh, to the north of that.
So you zoom in right there. Keep going.
This?
No, you had your hand on it. Go back. That corner, right straight in. Yep, right where your hand is. That's where.
Right here?
Yep. Not that whole thing, just that north.
Just maybe a portion?
Yep.
Maybe?
Just
Yes.
like-
Okay, got it. Okay, great. All right. Okay, so if I recall right, and I was trying to look back at some information, this was discussed November 2017 in the commission meeting, if I recall right, and it basically said, let me blow that up so you can actually read it. If the commission were to allow the district to move forward with a land swap with Sheridan College, the following steps would be executed. So is this the same land swap deal that you were talking about? Okay. And then here were steps, I found this and in the discussion, steps 1 through 8. And so we're specifically outlined, so you're aware in this process?
Yeah, so Mr. Finney has all this information. Step 6 has not happened yet, and obviously step 8 has not happened yet. Step 7.
What happened to our 7?
We did. So yeah, everything's done except for the title search. And
Close on the property. Okay, I think you just misnumbered it. Okay. So if approved, the district will have to cover the cost of performing the land due diligence, whatever. So this was kind of what was presented. You had $35,000. They moved. I put the actual motion that was brought forward to the meeting from the executive session. They said, thumbs up, go spend the 35 grand, do your thing. Okay, so I just want to make sure I was understanding the correlation between executive session discussion, agenda item motion during the public meeting. So we got that captured, and now we're right here, like you said, getting ready to do the title search, make sure everything, all the T's are crossed, I's are dotted, and then close on the property. And that's why you're going before the commission to get a final approval of the swap.
our board is.
Great. Okay. Anything else on that? Is that good? All right. Well, that's an important part of being ready when you get your money, right?
And we'll talk about that later.
That's we will. So when is always a positive way to look at it. Property profiles. These obviously affect your major maintenance payments. We have gross square, and I know this is real small and stuff, but I know you guys have looked through this. We forward to WDE the names of the buildings, what kind of grade configurations we have, even though they already have those, the addresses and so on. And they use that information in the block grant and stuff like that, identifying different properties and stuff like that. We get from them ADM, so they send us the ADM scrub, and then we basically apply the ADM to the district as a whole for generating major maintenance. It's plugged in the calculator. We have gross square footage, but within that gross square footage is allowable, right? So you may have a building, but if your building is under 80, if the ADM doesn't drive the gross square footage, then you would get less the allowable, and then, but if it's more than that, I think you get the allowable, even though the ADM will drive more, if that makes sense. But these are composited within the district as a whole, and your ADM is compared to your district-wide allowable and gross. So it doesn't, and I think that, to me, that's a really nice way of doing it. Because sometimes districts make choices because of boundaries and politically and things like that within the district for busing. Sometimes you will have a school that is maybe more overpopulated than another. You could disperse those students among the two schools and make it more even, but there are other factors involved in practicality. So it allows then you guys not to be punished just because you do what's best for students and staff within the decisions within your district. Okay, you've reviewed building leases, so I think we got that. Your enhancements you've reviewed, and everything looks good there. All right, so this one, oh yeah, so you guys are in the process or have already?
So what we're missing for the lease of the armory space is the MOU that's signed by the National Guard. We finally have the final one. It's been signed by our superintendent, and we're waiting on that.
Okay.
But it's, we've done the AIM request and the lease notification.
Okay, good. So we'll just ask you to continue to work with Amber to solidify that, because she'll work eventually with JJ here to make sure that, you know, with regard to, now in this case, you wouldn't get major maintenance for that, so it wouldn't affect your major maintenance payment because you're actually leasing from them.
Right.
And stuff. So, but thank you for working with her, and we'll just continue to capture that. Okay, now appropriations. So you guys did a really good job at explaining all the appropriations. So let's go down through these. Let me kind of decrease that just a little
There
bit.
was the one change from last night.
I saw you got it.
Yeah, but I want to make sure it's right.
Okay, so when we get there, please make sure I get it. So here's your notes, district, and then I just added our notes to make sure that you knew that what we interpreted from your notes. So let's go 1133 first, Bob, and this will be the new caffeine, right? You can see that it's there, great. You guys basically say the new drainage system installed and working under warranty until August. So I am assuming that it's under the warranty period and we'll review next year. And right now we will not return those monies as of yet. Okay, that's good. Okay, next one, 1134, future elementary school building site. That has been expended in full. I think we're all in agreement with that. Project complete, revert remaining funds. Actually, doesn't look to me like any funds are even available. So I'll just say no remaining funds to revert. And state statute actually requires us to revert monies on an annual basis. And I don't know if it survived, but there was one that they wanted us to actually revert monies on a quarterly basis. So, but I don't know if that made it through in that bill or not. Okay, 1135 is Sheridan Security Vestibule. That's 100%. You guys say it's complete. We say no funds remaining to revert. Good. 1136. Story renovation. That's expended in full, so there's nothing to revert. Sounds good. 1188. Repair water distribution system at the high school boiler building. Now, there was a couple $100,000 there available. And you said there, is that fire system?
That was the last phase basically, and it's under warranty.
Okay.
until August.
Okay, good. So we'll just review that next year. We won't be pulling anything prematurely.
That funding, the 203, we just put a request in for that. Actually, that's been paid to us, so that expenditure will show up as 453.
Oh, it will. Okay, so you've got more. Okay, good.
But I mean, it's already been through, it just didn't show up.
Didn't show up on this. We pulled this one in December or something, so this is a little bit older. Okay, 1196. Oh, long-term solution for a slope failure. Okay, so we're going to talk about that one a little more today.
Later on.
Okay, so
That's the one that they changed there.
So that's where I changed the wording.
okay, do we need to change something here?
Double check your answer because I believe. you
Basically,
added
I said
as-
project complete, no funds remaining to revert.
and-
So I would say it's not complete.
Okay, so the project, okay, so let's talk about it in standards, right?
Sure.
The appropriation as originally scoped out and approved by the legislature is complete. You have additional needs, but what you're saying then, let me know what they're saying. Are you asking for emergency funds? Are you asking for another appropriation?
Well, so two things are going on there. We have signs of failure where that project was done. We don't know the impacts yet. We're just getting into that planning phase.
Okay.
So arguably that project is not complete.
Okay, so project, okay. Project is not complete with regard to fully remedying, right?
Yep. the
Is
original-
that fair to say?
Yes.
With regard to full remediation?
You could say mitigation 2014 fails. So you can keep track of it. Because where it gets confusing is there's two failures.
Okay. All right. Two failures don't make it right.
That's correct.
Okay, so project is not complete with regard to full mitigation of 2014 slope failure. So it's okay. No, what?
Well, I think the conversation, and maybe we have this later on how to fund now, it may be appropriate, and I don't know, I'm just throwing it out there to use the design contingency funding that you have. But maybe we should just talk about it all in one package down below.
Yeah. Did you address it anywhere else down here?
Yes.
You did.
Yep.
Okay, so, oh, hey, look at there. Slope issue. Okay, got it. Okay, well, then when we get down to unique issues, concerns, would you concern?
Well, okay, I'll give you the full download.
Okay, perfect.
And then some.
All right, so I think, okay, so we'll just kind of, so this probably, this project should remain open, right? In AIM until issue is, I'll just say is resolved in discussion between district and SFD. And so in other words, we may end up, what I'm saying is it may stay open, they may close it, and then open a new project for phase 2 of mitigation. Who knows? So I'll just leave it open a little bit, but we won't close it until we fully discuss it with you guys. We come to some kind of an understanding of the meeting. Okay, so 2772, one plant replacement.
Hoping to get everything tomorrow to start the Dow process.
Okay, great. Project in progress, review next year. Wonderful. The next one, land due diligence. Okay, that's the one we just talked about. And I just in progress, review next year. You probably spend it all the way.
Sorry.
Did you? Okay. All right. Are we good? Okay, security, Bob.
Well, we had a conversation while I was up there a couple days ago. We talked about the security projects, and we've got a lot on here. There is some desire on the part of the district to take a look at these and see if they need to do a sweep and put them in different projects. So this is an ongoing effort. So we're all pretty familiar with the amount of money. We've got a pretty good slot of money that's still sitting in that we're going to see about expending. Towards that end, we have been given, as a department, some talking points about security. This is going to be redundant, but I'm obligated to run through it with you.
Absolutely.
Okay. The original funding for the security projects was done under the 2014 House Enrolled Act, 456, and that was in the amount of $9 million. The funding projects was defined under the 2015 Senate Enrolled Act, 489. And under that, October 2014, the security standards for the Wyoming K-12 schools was developed and released. And right through June of 2015, the FEA went out and assessed all the buildings in all the districts across the state. In July of 2015, there was just north of 1,500 security projects created for identified deficiencies. August of 2015, assessment of the buildings was released. September 2015, the security remedy guide was released. The most effective elements to provide school security to a common level are funded for the hard costs only. We discussed that. The soft costs are not covered. The funded security priorities, the first 8, have been available for authorization since July of 2015. In addition to that, there was additional major maintenance funding by House Enrolled Act number 12, which allowed the school district may expend up to 10% of the amount distributed under the major maintenance program for the period commencing July 1st, 2016 and ending July 1st, 2018 for safety and security building and facility needs. Legislators concerned listed concerns as sufficient soft costs in addition to the hard costs provided by the 2014 House Act, the 2015 Senate Act, may exceed individual district ability to fund and can be taken from the major maintenance up to 10% of the 2017-2018 major maintenance funding. District requests, we'll talk about this a little bit, moving funds between project appropriations must be in writing. There will be no backfill funding of those projects if they're swept. So no future funding will be available once those are swept off the boards. The SFD will honor any exchange agreements made by the SFD that were captured in record form, written record form from previous individuals in the office here. So the goal of security funding is intended to give each district an equal opportunity to provide security to security standards for Wyoming K-12 schools. The School Facilities Commission and Select Committee for School Facilities have stated concerns with the slow deployment of funds. For the 2017 supplemental budget session, the SFD proposed an additional $17.9 million for the next two priorities, so that would be 9 and 10 on the list. However, that was declined by the legislature due in part to slow deployment of the 2014 and 2015 funds. And as we talk, we are encouraging every district across the state to have all the funds currently appropriated fully encumbered. So on behalf of the school districts, the SFD can again make a request for the next round of security funding. And just a couple of notes here. The Homeland Security funding contacts are provided by Amber in the facility planning folder in AIM. And we will have that security meeting here, conference on March 13th, hosted by Fremont 24. I do that constantly. It's just Shoshone. And that location for that conference is going to be at the Wyoming College in Riverton, Wyoming. And the contact person for that is Kay Watson. I have her telephone number available for that. So as we discussed, and then we went over this on Tuesday, we want to put into a plan of action what we can use these funds for moving forward and try to get you what we can.
Yeah, and I'd add to that, we've got a meeting with our task force next week, so we should see some movement here. I just want to check in on one thing you said. You said that soft costs are not included. So you're saying the cost to design and bid the project isn't included. It's the contractor that does the work.
Correct, and that's the base cost for how much the door locks cost you. That's what those numbers represent in the particular categories, whatever those things happen to be. Now, here's the caveat. You can put your cost for your design and take that money that's appropriated under that category, but then it's going to wipe it out for your hardware.
Sure.
So it's a catch-22.
But then there's the reallocation and sweep, as you called it.
Correct.
But we got to be careful there because if we sweep, say, from the high school, we'll never get funding for that.
That
So
is
we need to make
correct.
sure we
That's the
understand.
caveat. It really needs to be discussed carefully with your district, with the board. Are they comfortable with doing that? Because there's not going to be a second chance at that unless there's another assessment that gets done.
Can you use your 10% money?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can.
Well, there's a 10% security.
Right here.
Yeah. 10% security.
So you can maybe use
Right.
that, part of that.
And then July 1st, we'll have another 10%, correct?
Well, there
Or is
was
that just this year?
there's some legislation.
It's actually in there. We checked it this morning, and it is.
It still survived?
House Bill 1 and Senate File 1
Yep.
are still in there.
So it's possible we
To
will.
my
have
knowledge.
a process in place.
No, it's one of the few things they.
This, the money you see up there for $193,000 was a one-shot deal to complement the security project, but they have opened it up in this next bill to do one more shot to assist you. But that's still.
It's still pending approval by the legislature.
But if it's not anything that can be changed, then it,
To our knowledge, it's still in there.
unless they go to
Well,
the
what's-
conference, then it should be fine.
We'll see what happens.
Did that answer the question for you?
Absolutely.
So my question is, Bob, how
Yeah.
far can a district, before they start, this is kind of just last week, kind of started making me think about this. How far can a district go before, can they solidify, let's say they want to bring their money over into a pot of money, no return, right?
No return.
Okay. how far is it possible for them to go to a point where, again, I guess, with the existing security monies above, not below right now, but above, and get to a point where they know what that bid is? Is that possible?
To know what the bid is?
Yeah. So for instance, can they use some design money out of maybe, a mixture thereof, get to the point where they put out the bid? Once they know that, then could they make the request to then reshuffle without, and they're not asking to reshuffle in advance as in they got the crystal ball. They're moving forward to a point where they're solidified, then they know exactly how much to move over, and then they can redesignate or reappropriate or whatever you want.
What can happen on that is the design can take place on a 10% security lines. And then, if you've got to come back with a hard number, then you can shift the other funds. If you shift it, my understanding, and I'll have to double check that this is a one-time deal.
We get that.
Move it, boom, period.
Can
So-
they move forward with design using the original budget for their various categories?
Well, we sort of have. So what we've got right now is we've got a Cadillac, I'll call it, with a cost estimate of like 6.8 million. Bob and I were looking at it on Tuesday. So
that just barely exceeds.
So now we're going to meet with this task force and pare it back to where it fits within our budget.
Okay.
So we're a little further ahead than I think you're mentioning. So
Okay.
it's not there's no design yet, but we have an estimate, and then we can put an estimate for the design in it, and then go from there. So really, it's about prioritizing how we're going to spend this money. Does that make sense?
Yep. Great.
We're not as far along as I'd like, but we do have a little bit of progress.
Your past run through.
Okay, we're good. Good explanation, Bob. Thank you. Capacity, Charlie.
Absolutely.
So right now, so for your capacity, for example, the John C. Schiffer School, we used that off the square footage that you're leasing. So that's the approximate. I should have actually highlighted that blue. That's an approximate capacity for now, which will hold until the state revenue goes, basically. So, and then for Sheridan High School, 69%, almost 70% full. Sheridan Junior High School, that is a campus capacity total. It includes the main building and the story building. Thank you. I always do that too.
Well, that's you have a
So, the early building, so that's a campus total. So if let's hold that, so about 75% full there. And then I broke out your elementaries because when we consider capacity for a district, if they have multiple elementary schools in town, we have to consider all in anything. Right? And so this takes into effect the capacities on the current consistent methodology.
So I would point out the Sheridan Junior High School includes the right place. And we put that in the notes, but I don't know if you want to change
Yeah, it's actually I included that in the enrollment as well. So
Well, that's what I mean.
Yeah, combined it. Yeah, so it's all combined into one. And I was meant to say that, but I forgot to.
And I think down here somewhere in my notes, I did address that to show you.
Okay.
All right, so let's look at your enrollment numbers here. Inclusive of the right place. Right? Yeah. Okay. So we got that.
So we have a name sheet.
It should say not Johnson.
It's not, we went through the process with WE and everything, changing the name of the high school.
We can't do that where we've got meetings.
So Fort McKenzie should now be Johnson.
You get that, right?
Yeah, it should be John. And they report it that way too. Sometimes there's residual names. But
Good.
Of course.
Good. Okay. You are welcome. We got that.
Yeah, it's
Cool. Okay, so looking at your enrollment, this is always, I don't know, I just find this really fun. So, because, the blessing of our jobs is we get to look at all 48 school districts and look at survival rates on the very far side. What you do is, it's 10 years, the commission approved methodology goes back 10 years, okay? Right here, it's 10 years, and then it projects out, okay, for give or take 10 years in the future. And then we do have, obviously, we have and more years here, but we even have more years available. But this shows a good snapshot of your last 10 years. And as we look at this, and this is just kind of telling for every district has a different story. Your average classroom size or class size per grade is 313 students on average. Man, you guys had a kind of a bubble crop in 2012 there. So you're a little bit under your average here in the last, actually right on the average in 2015, below your average the last 10 years here, and actually I'm missing a little bit. I apologize. Make that a 308. So it's not quite as bad there. So that looks good there. If you come down to about, give or take, 6th grade, K through 6, your average class size per grade is 286. As they move through the junior high, high school, give or take 249. So those student numbers continue to be more, obviously, at your earlier level. But sometimes that's reflective of the simple fact that there's some attrition, right, as students move through. Now, you guys are really good. We see this across the state usually, and in fact, we saw one this morning exactly at this percentage, or maybe it was 88.
It was pretty close to that.
And so we recognize, I think, that sometimes the survival rate as students, and how this works is you kind of, like, for instance, in 2013, you had kindergarten 316. When they moved to first grade, you were at 272. Second grade, so they actually go down this way. So last year's kindergarten is 272, even though it was 293. And this survival rate here is usually attributable to the fact that you have some students coming in kindergarten. Perhaps they're not ready to advance to first grade, and those students are held one more year before they advance. And I don't know for sure, Scott, would that be a fair comment with regard to your kindergarten survival rate?
So, with that, some of them don't go from kindergarten into first grade.
Yeah, so we have, is that the question, Troy? We have a classic program. So part of those kindergarten kids do not immediately go to first grade. Is that what the intent of that was?
Yes.
Yes, we did. We had more this particular current school year than we've had. We had 4 sections, ended up with 12 more students in classic. So their route is essentially classic kindergarten, regular kindergarten, and then first grade.
Oh, I see. Gotcha. Yep. Okay.
I mean, they're all age specific to being 5 or older when they start, so they do meet that qualification. It's not a preschool program.
Yeah. And so on this, we interpret this, Scott, this survival rate of 89%, we interpret that as a success rate rather than a failure rate. And I think you would agree. What you're doing is you're making sure that they're developmentally mature enough to advance to first grade. But it sounds to me like you're catching them on the front end and then enabling them to get the obviously for educational achievement, because that's huge at that age level. And if you can get them on the right track, then they start going through first through 12th grade.
Correct.
Perfect. Okay, so that's really a number of representing success of a program that helps filter and provide the appropriate help for students to then succeed in their future grades as they move through. The only place you really kind of miss, well, actually, I shouldn't say that. You actually improve in some ways, but not really. You'd have just a little bit of loss of students from first to second, just barely. That's a 99%. And then you guys basically either gain some students from second to third and then maintain through. This is a really good, you guys have a really good survival rate. And then obviously we have from usually the freshman or sophomore year, almost always
the sophomore year always drop off, and that's a statewide problem.
Yep.
And then a lot of times you have those seniors successfully come back into the system and graduate. So that's good too. So you guys have, in reality, it's probably not as good as you guys want, but in the world of school districts within the state of Wyoming, you guys have a pretty good survival rate.
I do have a question for you, Scott, and for Roxy as well. How much are you guys affected by weather being in those new businesses? How's that going to affect you guys?
Conversation.
Scott, can you weigh in?
Yeah, I don't know. Well, it looks like, at least what we have heard, is that 25% of the workforce is going to transfer from California to Sheridan, and then 75% obviously would be picked up within state or within the surrounding area. Now, we don't know how many of those, in fact, will be current residents of Sheridan, or how many of those will be families that currently move in here. We've got some folks that are doing some intel in regards to the approximate 25% that are moving here, and what does that look like as far as immediate or their nuclear family, and what does that bring with them. We don't know if we're going to see much of an initial influx. We hope we do as early as this fall. We're not anticipating a large increase. Hopefully that will come with time, but hopefully we'll see some of that. And I know with initial some of the management positions that are moving here this spring and summer, we're definitely going to see some families because they've already reached out to us. But I don't think it'll be initially significant, but I think it will definitely start impacting here shortly.
Yeah, there's also, what is it, the carbon fiber? Ramaco, thank you.
You know, what we're hearing is a lot of that stuff is they will hire from current people here.
Okay.
And the general, and this is all anecdotal, but the general feeling is it's really not going to have a giant impact.
Okay.
But let's hope it does.
Well, no, that's just
It's a good question.
It's a question that we posed on the Sheridan one. I know they had mentioned a lot of it, so I kind of wanted to see what for you guys as well, what the impact would be.
I think in general, I don't think any of us are seeing your area not grow. I think we're all saying, hey, I mean, there are all the indicators of growth in Sheridan, along with the economic increases as well as, who knows, I don't know what your birth rates do it. Mathers was just telling us a little while ago he was looking for an occupational change, whether he was used.
They only want finance.
Oh, cool.
Actually, Finney that was looking at
Finney. Yeah. Hey, Brandon Finney just joined us, just walked in.
Hello.
Troy, one thing I would add is in regards to enrollment, if our data is correct, we are the only district that has actually seen a consistent growth for the last 13 years. So even with the economics the way that they were, and as we continue to see the upswing, I think you're accurate. I think our enrollment will only continue to steadily increase.
Well, good. Congratulations. I think that's a blessing. As we do look down here, like your K-5 population, you can see that your growth isn't like you kind of lost some students from 15 to 16, just barely a few more now. But you guys probably have leveled off for a while, and hopefully you'll continue to see that growth. As it may be not necessarily a huge growth necessarily, but hopefully you guys. But who knows? Maybe you will when Weatherby gets in there. Maybe that'll bring another 30, 40 students. You never know.
Right.
So, yep. Okay. That sounds good. So we'll go back up here and make sure that good old Brandon is yellowed. You got that subtle joke. Okay. Okay, so with that, we just captured that. We know your alternative school has been set for enrollment, so we really don't have to look at projections necessarily. We'll be talking about your alternative school in just a little while with regard to the legislative action, and you guys are more aware than us probably. But statewide, we do have some growth, and Charlie will cover this just a little bit from a larger picture.
Absolutely. So every year for our policy 2013-20, we have to categorize our capacity needs throughout the state. High priority is 100% and above. Medium is between 95 and 100, and then low is between 90 and 95% of capacity. And currently, we pay attention really to when they get medium priority and above. So Albany 1, Laramie, the junior high school there, we've done a immersive study for them, and now we're just monitoring enrollment, monitoring the situation for them. And then we're currently conducting an interim remediation situation for Rock Springs. I started out, and that's what we're going to do in the meantime for their capacity issue. And so that's more for your information.
Okay. Okay, so I did just put in here, Mathers.
Oh, yeah, that comment up above, the right place to, that is, they are not missing.
Yeah.
Just change that district note to enrollment numbers are included in the junior high.
Okay, you just don't say this, but including the junior.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a placeholder.
Okay, and right here, I just showed you real quick that we actually did that. Okay, cool. Major maintenance calculations, allowable square footage.
So every year we get the question, how is our major maintenance calculated? What are the big drivers? How do you figure it? And so this is an illustration of this point. Came off of last year's calculator. So your ADM last year, 3,433, drove an allowable of 552,787. But that means there's a couple things that means. First, it means that you got paid for 552,787 square feet last year. Your inventory of actual educational square footage is 773,317. So, first part, there is a gap. Last summer, we went through measures and conducted a major maintenance study in which we tried to raise the RS means value, tried to raise the current replacement value from 2 to 2.5%, and we tried to increase the money that would go towards major maintenance. I think Brandon would have doubled their major maintenance payment and covered the gap. Well, unfortunately, at this point in time, the only thing that has survived from all of our efforts is the 7-year phase, and that's including House Bill 32. The rest of it was still.
Well, the phase-in part is still.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Yeah, I just left there, actually, it's still,
That'll help us.
So that,
What schools are still in phase-in?
Coffee is still in phase-in, I believe. The Middle Arc, that's 2012. Woodland Park, thank you. Woodland.
So Coffeen was 2014.
At that one.
Meadowlark's 2012.
That one.
Woodland. Is that house built? Yeah. Woodshop storage is 2032.
House Bill 32.
Highland Park is 2012. Storage.
So anyways, for example, those two, their square footages, whenever you're doing a phase-in, the square footage of those buildings is taken, like, it's weird how, but it's basically, you get a portion of that payment. So that will also change in that number. If the phase-in passes, your allowable will go up, basically, and it'll close some of that gap a little bit as well. So those are items that go into that major maintenance payment. So when we get down to, we do a bunch of steps in it. And towards the end, when we do phase-ins, we reduce the allowable by the phase-in value. So, like, for example, Meadowlark would be in year 4. We reduce the value, I believe it's 60. So you get 60% of that square footage value for allowable, 40% is held off. And so that's how that comes in. So that, if House Bill 32 is approved, you'll get the full square footage on both those buildings. Yeah, so that part's still in there. The other efforts, unfortunately, did not make it. They died along the way. So.
Well, they say we can do it in 2022, essentially.
I got struck.
Yeah. Oh, that even got struck.
Yeah, all that died.
So yeah, we need school districts, if you guys want to join us, it'd be a great thing for you to stand up and say your needs and make it known. Hopefully that'll happen in the future even more, because I think we together kind of create a stronger, unified request. So I know school districts will probably in favor of that, obviously, but sometimes. But even when school districts are in favor of things, they don't happen sometimes.
Well, and maybe this isn't the time to discuss it, but the software, the maintenance software, facility management software, I'd like to talk about that too.
Yeah, that was, for us, that was taken out. That was disappointing. We had school districts, two school districts stand up in testimony in the select committee. And after that testimony, they removed it. And so we were really hopeful that would be.
Todd's up for it.
Okay. Charter schools, you don't have a charter school. You got the collaborative high school in the right place, so those are still in motion. This, I think, is a really important part of when you think of Mathers was inquiring, well, if we don't get money for John C. Schiffer in this biennial budget, maybe we can get it in the supplemental. We'll be talking about that in just a minute. The probability of that or not of that based on the bill information, the bill wording. So we'll talk about that in just a moment. But I think this is important, Brandon, because what they're saying is they basically have it through June 2020.
Right.
So they were
At a cost of $90,000 a year.
okay.
So
So no,
90 grand block
Just-
grant until the 2020.
Yeah, it's 86.
so is it definitive that if you don't have something built, even if you would have been approved in this one, having something built by 2020 wouldn't have happened? I mean, that would.
Do you have an
been like-
extension clause? Auto extend by 3
Yeah,
years?
how definitive is you
So
moving?
they are very, it benefits them as well as us, and it's more of if they can, I believe, and Scott might be able to speak more about it, but I think if they're able to, they'd be open to it, but they're growing quickly too, so.
So you're sort of squeeze or taking some of their opportunities away.
Yeah, it's an if thing, well, yeah. And my thought with the supplemental too is, even if we don't expect it to pass, it's putting it in front of them again and getting it talked about.
So my question here, and the reason I ask this, because it's really important for us to make sure we hear you clearly. You didn't make an if statement, you made a definitive statement. So is it definitive, or is it an if, or is it uncertain?
Another location will likely be required.
Maybe.
Even right now,
It's
call
unclear.
it the way on the college, because right now
Right.
they're growing, and for them to find that space for us was tough.
So you can change the will to a may.
Okay, Scott, do you agree with that? We don't want to take words out of your mouth, but we want to make sure that we understand clearly, because what you say here does make a difference on what we communicate to a legislative body.
Well, what it should say is a new lease or another location will be required.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's fair to say, because, yeah, if they can't and they've expanded their enrollment to the point where they have to take back that space, then yeah, I think we've got to look for another space. And if they can, then obviously, as Mathers points out, we would renegotiate another lease.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Well, I think you put in there, the college may not be available depending on their growth. Yeah, that was one of the reasons Mother became is that you can get machinists out of there like crazy. Go straight into
That
it.
means-
And Valley Tech.
That's true.
Yeah, that's a good point. I especially, thank you for bringing that point up. I mean, so yeah, I mean, especially if they can get machinists out of there, that makes a huge difference for your school. So they were talking about, Roxy was talking about that with Weatherby coming in, the machinist at program at Sheridan College is a huge advantage for them to be able to get recruit workers out of that. And so they may talk about expanding that program.
And it'll be John C. Schiffer kids that graduate.
So, and you see a lot of these community colleges expanding their curriculums with businesses to have a mainstream programs that are specific to that corporation or workforce.
Yep, Vacuum Tech's doing the same thing.
There's several companies, even LCCC here in Cheyenne,
Oh.
et cetera. So
Okay, we're good on our notes? All right. All right, we like this illustration or example of, and you think it's kind of basic, but, yeah, he thought of it and put it together, there you go. The illustration. But, we have our understanding from, is about 25% of the superintendents change over a year, give or take. I don't know what the percentage of business managers would facility managers.
We don't understand the role, right?
You guys have a little bit longer longevity. And then the facilities, I mean, I can only think of a handful that when I started in 2005 or so. So you have these changeovers on a regular basis. So even though it's elementary, we always like to present it because we have newbies. And I think for superintendents particularly, because they are focused on the education of those students, it's helpful to them to understand how the facilities have an impact on the educating of their students as well, which most of them have an idea of, but it's always nice to review. So preventive and routine maintenance are important throughout the lifespan of the building. As that building ages, obviously major maintenance is provided to districts through the state to take care of those needs as deferred maintenance needs increase as the building ages. And then life cycle of buildings, and sometimes the life cycle of buildings is determined by the availability of appropriations through the state for capital funds. But normally, a building kind of follows a certain path of existence, depending on how well it's taken care of, meets the needs of the students, the educational environment usually changes the needs within that, and a lot of times you can renovate to meet those needs. Sometimes replacement is necessary simply because of the challenges condition-wise for the building, or sometimes because of the availability of funding through the legislature.
Yeah, so the 0.65, that's your facility index score, I imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that would say, theoretically, not be a problem, anything over that would be probably considered for capital investment.
Yeah, you bet, because right about that point is when we want to kind of start really in the planning process, start looking at that building going, okay, well, what will be the most cost-effective remedy? Is replacing it, or is, maybe renovating it, building by building decision?
So I also hear, I don't know if it's an official number, but 0.4 is kind of when anything below 0.4 this year, we weren't doing capital component projects.
Yeah, the vision was House Bill 32 was going to get funded, so you get double your major maintenance. You take all the .40s and greater and address them with the commission-directed component. And then once all that backlog of deferred maintenance was taken care of, you get 100% raise. Boom, you can maintain all of it died. So,
Well, not all of it.
well, 98%.
Well, I appreciate you guys starting the conversation, and I think that's where software would be so helpful, especially with the turnover. I mean, that's my challenge, is trying to figure out where to spend the money. The scores are great, very helpful, but if we had an asset-based software that captured it across people that leave, it'd be so helpful.
You could pick up where they left off.
Well, the next biennium we'll make another run at it.
Well,
And,
and I just,
who knows? One of the things I want to integrate in the facility planning next year, which Amber captured yesterday, I think we talked about, is wouldn't it be great to ask these districts, just like we're doing on some other things, ask each district specifically, okay, do you have maintenance software? If the state were to provide it, and here's what we would potentially ask for, would this be of interest to you? And go district by district by district and ask them to capture it, and then capture that data and bring it to the select committee and
Try it again.
and have a full discussion of complete openness.
I think it's beautiful. The problem, it's a good problem to have, but we want to make that investment. Maybe not this year with the funding the way it is, but to me, the investment that I've seen is it's about $40,000 to get where we need to be for our district. Of the major maintenance money, it's a small percentage, and you're going to save all that money in the back end and then some. But I don't want to make that investment with software that I want, and then the state says we're going to use this software.
Right.
And so I'm hesitant to take that step.
Yep.
So I don't know if, and I'm just throwing it out there as a suggestion, is make reporting requirements. Right? That's something that the commission could do and say, hey, quarterly you need to report on this, 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 and this. And people can do it by hand if they need to. But they can Excel spreadsheet it. That can't be a commission. But anyway, I'm very hesitant to make an investment on this software, knowing that it could be changed.
It's a great idea.
And you're
preaching to the choir.
It makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Right, it does.
Yeah, our financial report is our annual report. It'd have to be a statute type deal.
However, that software we're recommending did have reporting capabilities.
Had it all, man. I mean, it was there.
Which software are we looking at?
Any one. We requested $1.3 million to fund it, and not only say, hey, Mather, just relax. Here's a fleet of consultants that'll set up your whole program for you, and turn over a laptop, and then you just start running with it.
Or a smartphone.
Or a smartphone, yeah. Pick up your phone. I'll download the app for you. Just stay, relax.
Here you go.
The state is going to bankroll the
That's
whole
when I
thing.
first started, and I was in support, and
Yeah.
but I don't like school, but that's the thing.
Yeah.
I don't support school for something like this. It works really well for us, but when you do managing your PMs, it doesn't.
Which
It's
is,
not powerful enough.
and the neat thing about this too is, we would have involved districts in selection.
Design of it.
Who was leading the charge on looking into that software?
Well, I put together the report, took it to select committee. Are you gonna shoot me or? Yeah.
No, I just, after this meeting, I'd like to share some information.
Yeah, we went through it. We spent about $300,000. We had a whole group of school district members. We hired a consultant. We went through the whole hurdle, man.
And the professionals were.
And it all is
And we are not married to any, one
Fizzle.
provider.
just fizzled out. So.
Okay, going on, reviewing condition scores. This is just page one of 400 educational buildings across state. The higher the FCI stands for Facility Condition Index number. The higher that number, it's a composite score of system scores within each building that roll up to one score that represents the amount of deferred maintenance. The higher the FCI number, the higher the amount of deferred maintenance associated with systems within the building. And yes, anything of a 0.4 or above, we asked for, made recommendations to the commission made recommendations to the select committee, advanced to the JAC, was included in the House bill, and actually these of 0.4 and above are, to my understanding, is in the Senate file as well. So I think we're still good here.
Yeah, sagebrush is there.
Yeah. Yeah, so it varies a little bit from the House bill to the Senate file just because of the Laramie one stuff for them. But just because the House bill one, that's a little different. But yeah, for example, sagebrush is still in there and various others.
It could go to special session.
Your John C. Schiffer is not. You guys know that. We just found that out yesterday, day before, last week. So you guys know that, but
It's not done
obviously.
though.
Obviously, you guys, other than that, you got sagebrush, we're going to be talking about that in just a minute. But other than that, you've got pretty good buildings. Your bus barn's been up there. Obviously, ancillary buildings in this economy and in the conservatism of Wyoming, from a legislative point of view, the ancillary buildings they don't stand a lot of hope with regard to capital funds at this point.
So on the bus barn, I thought I put it in the notes, maybe I forgot to put it in. But anyway, we have a drainage issue. Every spring, our director's office floods. It's really not tied to a score.
Yeah, because when the FEA went out there, obviously it wasn't when it was flooding,
Yeah.
so they didn't see it, so they didn't report it.
Well, they still wouldn't though. If it's site related, they don't score.
But what I'm getting at is we've got to fix this. It's not going to help that score. We also need to fix the roof, which will help that score. So Bob and I have been talking about it, but I guess what I'll say is we are not going to rebuild that building. We're accepting that. I think that's what everybody's saying. But we will.
Actually, I think we made a run at it stuff 4 or 5 years ago.
We did.
And it didn't, it fizzled.
It did.
Never the same.
So, but honestly, if we fix the roof and the leaks and some inside stuff, it's fine.
Is that a major maintenance project this summer?
So we're gonna pick away at it.
Okay.
So I think
Are you including drainage?
yes.
Okay.
So but maybe it doesn't need to be a no, but I know. Yeah, there we go. That's
Anything else? The roof? Anything else? And or just
that's where we're gonna start, and then next year we'll start working on the systems.
Cool. Okay, good. Okay, quickly, we'll kind of just review major maintenance. You guys do a 680 report every year. It's just a reconciliation of your major maintenance account with expenditures. We just took a kind of a snapshot of last year's priorities. Gymnasiums was a high priority, and then it went to design and so on. So, and we just do this for illustrative reasons. We could put 10 years worth of data in. Next year, we're kind of contemplating maybe taking your 10 years worth of priorities, last 10 years, and make it into a composite bar graph and put it in there just for an interesting view for each district.
How did you get a negative in there?
The negative right here, site drainage.
Yeah, how'd that work?
You got negative drainage?
Hey, what kind of creative bookkeeping does the district do?
Lori might know the answer to that. She is, Lori, do you know? I'm putting you on the spot.
And what specifically are you asking?
So do you see how that site drainage is a negative number? And that was last year, so the state cut us a check last year or something. Did something?
Oh,
No, I was going to say they have not done anything with the site drainage.
So they probably credited back off of something else from the previous year. And they just fell on the wrong year.
Unless that was tied to the slope somehow.
That's what it's looking like, the junior high school, the site drainage.
Oh, maybe it was in major maintenance the year before, and then the capital with that,
Or the emergency funds that came through.
or the
She then somehow.
did you guys maybe credit your major maintenance account for that drainage correction after capital funds were received?
We did do a correction on the junior high due to the vendor that we had to go up against for some of the original drainage.
the vendor had to pay. It must have crossed fiscal years.
Yeah.
Because it did cross fiscal years, and we ended up getting the credit in the year that we didn't have any expenditures.
Got it. That makes sense.
Okay, help me describe this. I just want to make sure that junior high school, it's not drainage, is it? In a slope?
It was the slope.
Slope.
There's a number up top. It's 11.
16, I thought. Way up there. Is this one here, the 16,225?
Yes.
Okay. Whoops. Don't go too far. Okay, help me describe this, guys, just so we can explain why we have a negative. The junior high school slope remediation, partial, I guess. Remediation.
I would say-
cost. Go ahead.
The contractor that was working on the slope had to, refund's not the right word, but made a credit after the work was complete that crossed fiscal years.
They had to forfeit some of their retainage.
Yeah, right. Forfeited retainage?
Yes.
Okay, does that capture pretty good? Fiscal years. Okay, that's good enough. Thank
And
you.
then we had another.
You know, I do have one question. I don't know if this is the place to ask it, but with the security projects, when they said that the 10% was legislated that it could be spent out of major maintenance, is that in addition to our regular 10% calculation, or is that part of our regular 10% calculation?
Part of, not in addition to.
Okay.
A separate 10%.
It's
the same money.
that's right. It's an identified, of that year's major maintenance payment in whole, it's identified as 10% of that payment.
So it'll be on the 680, 90, what is it? 680. That'll be a section of the 680 we have to track.
So now you've had it. Regular major maintenance, 10%, just the normal 10, I'd say district directed 10%, and then 10% security. Those three.
It all comes out of the same one.
Yep.
So will we have to track the 10% security separately?
Yes, as you prepare planned work orders in AIM, if you're spending something out of that 10% security, you'll have a selection of that fund, and you'll identify it as 10% security.
So when we put in a
Okay.
work order, we can choose major maintenance 10%, security 10%, and actually major maintenance 8%, which we call that.
Yeah.
But they
If you
don't
if you
have
had
to
it, we
spend it
don't.
on security at all. It could be, they could dip down.
So Lori, we haven't used any of that 10% yet because we haven't on our security stuff. We haven't gotten.
Right. I was thinking as we go forward.
Yeah, when you put the codes in there on the major maintenance projects, it'll have that moniker over on the right-hand side to be 10%.
Okay.
Each year,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Did you see my note there too about where you want to do a phone request for Sagebrush?
I just put it on, don't I? Low condition scores each year, we just kind of continue to bring this, and you guys did a really good job, it looks like, talking about different things. And then, like Mathers just talked about, there is a capital, the legislators have chosen to use component level funding categorically with capital funds to supplement major maintenance when major maintenance is not sufficient to deal with the needs of the district from a financial point of view. So it's kind of like it fills in the gap between your major maintenance and your major maintenance needs with regard to lower condition scores or anything that needs to be fixed. Maybe it's a health issue or safety or whatever. So anyway, so as you look through this, when you do have, and you guys know this, I'm sure, certain categories, and we'll talk about that in just a second, certain categories of component funding seem to rise to the top, and certain don't as much. And so we'll talk about that a little more, but we always appreciate you guys being aware of your lower condition scores.
So, and then as you know too, sometimes you have low scores embedded in one of these codes. So like the gymnasium, the lights are rated at a 1 or a 2 right now. And so we are addressing that stuff.
Yeah, Mathers is talking about a local condition score of 1 and 2. So you may have a system that rates 3 or 4, but you have a local, maybe, like this case, you have a certain part of the system that is failure or poor. And I think that's a good identifier. We're talking about next time we do a condition assessment, we're hoping we can take those and actually put them in their separate column and identify those as local condition scores and have their own notes associated with that, so you don't have to read through all your notes to find them. And then they'll have probably deferred maintenance associated, perhaps, maybe not. It'd be kind of cool though if you have deferred maintenance related to those systems alone, but maybe not. You guys, as of January 31st, you kind of gave us a proposed balance of what it would be, minus your encumbrances of your major maintenance. All things being equal, if you received about $2 million more in major maintenance, you'd have about a $5.4 million balance there. Different districts are different ways. Some districts, they just don't have a choice. They have to spend it. Some districts are able to save it up a little bit more. And so whatever you guys need to do, it looks like you guys had about, give or take, almost 60% in reserve of your yearly amount. Am I thinking correctly on that? No, I don't think my percentages are right. So at any rate, you guys do have some available for whatever your needs are as you work through. We always ask you to clean up the database if you have things that you do report on the 680 and they've been completely reported. And the next year you can remove those and close them basically, and just keep your works in progress and your opens available. sometimes districts in the past have had certain work orders, and they decide that they're not going to deal with it, and so they'll remove those as well.
Did the slope remediation stay open or work in progress? I guess it'd be open.
Which building is that?
Junior high.
That came through emergency funding, right?
Oh, okay.
So I think it would, well, the point, I think it'd be busted underneath the capital.
Yeah, these are only for
Not under major maintenance.
Oh, I thought there was a major maintenance too, but that's okay, as long as we got it in the capital.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't see them.
With regard to component funding, last year the governor approved $21 million worth of component projects. Man, that helped districts so much across the state. Out of the 37 requested here, give or take, the first 16 are still working and still been approved and are existing within the bill that's before the Senate right now. You guys, and it equals about 10.5 million. You guys are still in here for your science room plumbing at about 600,000. So, barring some unforeseen things, you guys will have about 600,000 there to work with on that funding. So, thank you for using that process, and I think it's a great resource.
Really? Well, that's not surprising, actually.
Okay, so anyway, you guys, looks like you are wanting to, by September, submit for next year walls and roofs.
Yeah, and I guess, obviously I'm new and I don't want to make a request that doesn't make sense, but the Highland Park, once you get these two taken care of, that facility score is going to go 1.2. And the only other one that's really big is the flooring. We've got 1.5 million deferred in the flooring in the high school. But I just don't see that as likely to get a component funding because it's still going to class. So I'd like to put in for both, but is that a mistake? Is the question.
Well,
Go through a process.
Well, yeah, and that was a conversation too that we were having. You've got the group, obviously, that looks at all these component requests and prioritizes what they think is appropriate.
One of 37 to 50 requests, right?
mm-hmm. And who knows? Next year they might ask for, it might look good for $20 million for component. For the
Actually
biennium.
part of that group now.
Oh, you did.
I haven't heard about it in a while, but they asked me if I wanted to be on and said yes.
Yeah, we'll train you probably closer to the fall.
Okay.
On the group, so you'll be a part of that process, and that will really help you understand how the scoring goes and everything.
So, really quick for his September 15th, we have to have everything in. Okay. So make sure that you have that down.
But we've got to have an engineer or an architect do an estimate, right? It can't just me go.
Assessment and
Yeah.
everything, and their estimate.
So I'll get those going.
Charlie, would you mind sending out, now that I think about it, and Amber, maybe it'd be more appropriate for you, but sending out a reminder to districts since you have all the contacts for component. Probably just a reminder of schedules. If you can get the schedule, for component projects and send that out to the districts as just a reminder, just say, hey, everybody,
It's got to plan and do this day, and the committee does this.
Yep. And we've got that in there under in the F drive, especially doing that. Okay, she's giggling at me over here. Okay, so that's good there. Legislative session, and so a couple things. House Bill 1, this has been removed from the Senate File 1 with regard to your alternative school request. There's still, I know that the House came back and did some further work on that, and I know a committee needs to form. I think 3 members of each legislative body to come together and do a committee and work out the final. So the dust isn't settled yet on this, but we all know that it's going to be a challenge.
Now, don't forget also, emergency funding got cut, that $4 million. So if we ask for money next July 1st, we're slow, it's not there. And so what I want to do is, Bob and I have talked about this briefly, at the next meeting, which is the 21st of March, when they ask for public comment, I'd like to present the slope issue as public comment. And then the following one, which would be May, ask for emergency funds for this year.
How much?
Well, I don't know, but we should know by
That's the
March.
problem.
Probably $500,000. Bob would just go see it.
I was standing there Tuesday watching the ground fluff.
So are you guys gonna close
I
school?
hope you weren't standing below it.
You were standing. What?
So the immediate risk is flooding in Sheridan, not closing the school.
Oh, because it's gonna fill up the Little Goose, right?
Yep, Big Goose.
Okay, let me see, where is this at?
Actually, it's
Where do I go?
Go to the junior high.
Wherever that is.
Zoom in, up left, right there.
Here, right here.
Nope, over.
So maybe it's the city's problem.
Here.
Uh,
Let me drag it.
Is
Oh, I
this-
see it, JHF.
Actually, this is twofold.
Well, I mean,
Part of it's city and part of it's the district.
yeah.
Okay,
we've
so
already
right here,
addressed
this is the
some stuff.
2014
So I'm saying,
failure.
whoa.
This was repaired, and now there's a little bit more that's gone out. Oh wait, no, this is the slide I'm talking about, sorry. This was the repair. This is the new slide, and it's much worse now. The school property goes about like this
How many
chunk.
feet is that cross?
From here to here is 100 feet.
So how
Yeah.
far is it up the hill?
Well, there's tension cracks all along right here below the wall. And then there's a huge slide over here too that's actually worse now. So this is city, this is city, this is school, and this is school.
So this is
So
probably.
that's a river right there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Big Goose Creek up.
So you've got,
Coming down.
and it's eating away.
Oh,
Yeah. And
So
so
what's-
what's sliding?
So I
And
you know, I
there's
can
a
talk
school
about
bill
for
on
days.
top.
This creek, the biggest reason is this creek wasn't here in 1920. It was
Oh,
over
it's
here.
diverted and created.
Yeah.
Man-made.
Yeah, Army Corps of Engineers.
Can you go? do a break?
So this is probably a crazy question, but if it's sloughing off, it's self-correcting itself.
No, because the
Or
problem
is there
is,
proof that it'll just continue to be corrected?
well, so what happens is the toe is holding up the slope, right? The river comes along, takes out material, now the toe is smaller, so it does it again and again and again. So the problem is, in the eyes of the government or the feds, is you're putting particulates in there. But this is a levee. This is an Army Corps of Engineer jurisdiction. And there, if this spills in, it'll go over the levee and flood Sheridan. This is a old folks home right here.
Well,
So that's a lower ground on the other side of it.
Yeah, so this,
Yeah.
this sidewalk
Yeah,
is
it's huge.
is a hump.
This is way higher.
There's where Finney went to high school or junior high. Really?
Yeah, that's my cousin's house.
Don't point at it, don't point at it.
That's William Belton's office right
Yeah.
here.
So,
Anyway,
So-
I want to present,
So they built up on the cliff,
well, and then also that's a big giant junk
or the bluff.
pile. It
however
used to
you
be
wanna call it.
a dump. So what I want to do is present for information, tell them that we're going to request emergency funds. There is emergency funds for this fiscal year, correct?
Yeah.
Why was the commission not open to approving? Because didn't they make a request, Sheridan 1 make a request for the fire suppression?
Oh, yeah, that was it for that third building,
yeah,
the one that they were asked 90 grand for
okay.
that, where the bus barn burned down, they had the adjacent building, and a third
Fire
building,
dammers, right?
fire sprinkler systems, for
Yeah.
the third building, 90 grand, I got turned down.
Because it currently, or met code when it was designed,
But here's the thing,
But the
is
fire
there,
marshal says, no, it
but
didn't.
now it doesn't.
Now it doesn't.
Well, we were in a meeting earlier about seismic code changed in the IBC book. So now you go through and do seismic structures throughout the state.
Well, the only reason it got generated, the question got generated is because that bus barn burned down and they had to do mitigation and the fire marshal got involved with adjacent buildings. That building is sitting less than a 20-foot side yard requirement. So it's affected by fire code.
So now there's a whole process we just gotta follow. I think you're on the right track.
okay.
Well, actually, the second question I've got for you guys, and maybe set me straight on this, does he need to put something in to get it as an information item?
Well, it's too late. So his process is doing the he said he's gonna come and do a
Yeah,
public,
well, that's what he's
public
gonna do.
comment. He'd come up, give the history and the background.
And then get on the agenda for me.
And then say, we're gonna come forward. And the question I would have is, what do you have like a engineer's estimate and all
I will.
that? So it's not like, well, I need about 300.
Well, I will in May. I
In May.
don't, I might have a tiny bit in March. We're getting a report tomorrow
Okay.
from a geotech company, but
Cool. Yeah, preliminary estimate. I'd bring that.
well,
Well, it only go off of
what's
that.
the last SFC meeting this fiscal year? Is it May?
Yeah.
Because it's
April for sure, I didn't find one in May.
May 2nd and 3rd is in Lovell. So we do have one in May. The one in Afton, Brandon, when is that one? Have we decided?
because that's what I'm getting at is in
But you'd wanna go like, an emergency means I gotta turn dirt tomorrow, drive piles
well, then raise money. It's tomorrow. We don't know.
and.
We really do need to turn dirt tomorrow. But anyway, I think you and I could visit about it more.
And spring runoff's coming.
A lot of that's true.
Well, that's why this failed. It was the wettest in April in history. Wow.
Okay, I did make notes down there. We'll review them here in just a minute. So we know that the John C. Schiffer at this point is not in here. It was. We'll see what happens.
Do you want to put in their emergency funding as well? For the next planning?
For this one?
Yeah, in addition to that, they cut emergency funding. So if we don't request emergency fundings before July 1st, there aren't any.
Well, there still is.
Oh, those carry?
Yeah, they carry. So
Oh, they
currently
carry.
in our books, we've got like 1.1-ish, 1.3.
Oh, they roll over.
Yeah,
Well, that changes. That's good. That's great.
It's excellent.
Sheriff, 48.
Yeah, it's for 48 days.
Well, but
so
it's-
there's a whole process.
There's a little bit more time to get a real number to you guys.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, if it's an emergency, I don't know.
Well, the problem is, we're gonna have to spend some serious money just to know what's going on.
well, right. I mean, you can't just ask for money. However, I mean, that's kind of interesting though, because you do want to get on the radar screen. And because who knows who else would come and ask for money.
There could be another
Right. So them being aware of the issue may help them preserve the money if there's another competing emergency request, if that emergency request isn't viewed by them as equally as potentially as important.
So the other thing that needs to be discussed is there's your design contingency growth contingency, does that sound right?
With the design fee for it?
No, you guys have a fund budgeting for unexpected,
Unanticipated,
thank you,
yeah.
that's what I'm looking for. That project that we had before, still being open, it may be worth discussing that as an avenue.
I like that.
So back up to this.
Yeah, you see his projects? Tell me the project number.
11,
Too much.
right there.
1196.
Nice.
1196, okay. And what do we have? Project is not complete with regard to full mitigation of 2020 solar project. We an open aim until issues is resolved in discussion between district and SFP.
Okay, so that was
So-
1196. It was originally 429,000. Project number 1196, yeah.
Okay.
Does that unanticipated roll from year to year as well?
No, expended, so budgeted, you spent it all. Okay, it's still open.
Yeah, so additional slope has failed, and
What's your unanticipated percentage you usually think?
Well, it's not, because that's not a capital, it's an emergency.
Yeah.
But,
But didn't they do contingency on an emergency?
no, they blew every penny. But, one idea, I'm trying to think of the state as cash flow, because $1 million can be one emergency, you need half of it in one. So, another option is we look at unanticipated, continue the solution of that. And I don't know, I need to work on that though.
let me know, I'll bug you about it next week.
Okay.
So you're saying that there are unanticipated?
There's
funds?
none. There's none, I need to see if that's legal.
Right,
To
so,
use unanticipated funds, because I'm just creating.
It's an emergency, not a capital.
Yeah. Because there's a section in our rules that state, in theory, let's say the whole slope gave away and man, everything fell down to the front of the building. You can go, in the rules and regs, it says you go to the lowest priority of previous appropriated projects, you pull that money, you spit it to the emergency, then you come back in the next session to refill that project. That's a true emergency. I mean, like I say, this, you look out the front door of the school and there's a cliff.
So even next year, that's an option.
Yeah, I mean, so I need to look in, there's a couple of methods. Let me do my homework.
I'm just gonna say Brandon will investigate possible use of these, funds.
Funds.
Does that sound good?
Brandon will investigate, Brandon will look into funding options. So I know two.
And then obviously the alternative is major maintenance. But it's, we could have to shut down our parking lot, we could lose parking lot space, we could lose playground space, and even some of our track, but it's not gonna stop school. The problem is big budget.
Okay, so here is something that we all need to be aware of too. For emergency to be declared, according to commission rules and regs, okay, you have to, the superintendent in writing has to basically demonstrate that there are no other funds available to resolve that issue.
Including major maintenance?
Including major maintenance. So just be aware of that, but that's part of, and you can look at our rules and regs.
And hey, that's a question. Do you have some major maintenance that you would throw at it and reprioritize your needs?
By July 1, 5 million.
Okay.
Not to say they don't have other needs, but what's more important than have slope failure in the junior high school?
Well, I think you gotta just say it. It stinks to have to spend money on this when you could be fixing your ones and twos. And that's the bottom line.
But your superintendent would have to justify not using that money in order to apply for major maintenance.
Or there's a whole section on the statute. We can give you an example of what they did in the past.
Well, Brandon and I will work together on that.
Okay.
Well, and knowing how long you have in that slope till it works back to that wall. I mean, yeah, this year is an extreme year. But how long is it gonna take?
We were
Is it
standing
immediate?
there observing that hillside, and there were buckets full of dirt falling out of the scarred area.
As we're talking.
Bluffing, while we're standing
That's
there.
scary. Next time you're in Sheridan,
Yeah, it wasn't just something that was gonna happen, it was physically happening.
so I hired I got a company that the city hired, that this is all they do. They're a huge firm, they're in Shannon and Wilson, and this is what these guys do. He walked out and went, whoa, and this is somebody who does this all the time. So it's not nothing, but, well, we know what to do to go forward. We can move on if you'd like.
One other question on that. I think in certain circumstances with director's approval, hasn't there been the ability to address it with major maintenance funds with the potential of backfilling those?
Up to, I forgot about that. There's up to $100,000.
To $100,000 or something? So that may be something where you'll be able to move forward with major maintenance with the possibility of coming back and getting it recharged if demonstrated that major maintenance isn't sufficient. And Scott, just to make sure that we're clear with you guys, if you have an emergency, if you have slope failure, if it's impending that it's going to affect that site as a whole, be dangerous to people, the best thing you guys can do is move forward to resolve a safety issue, not wait for government to turn its wheel. So just to make sure that we're communicating clearly that that you guys do have some resources there and don't want to impede you from doing what you need to in a timely manner.
So we're not. The gears are turning. The RFP's going out.
Buckets
Hopefully in a
are
week.
falling.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Okay, good, all
Not in a
right.
good way, but it was.
So that's another option that,
I'm trying to find that policy.
one of the things you expressed within this, are we good there? Okay. One of the things you expressed in this is man, it'd be great also during the supplemental budget to ask for some construction money for the alternative school. We'll be happy if we get the design. But I did want to point out that in the last bill, I had to do some serious looking here. actually, I think it was in this. If any alternative school is approved prior to March 15, 2017, which yours was, right? It was in motion, but the school facilities for that alternative school had not been constructed prior to 2017. No design or construction funds shall be expended by the school facilities division for the state construction department to construct the facilities of that alternative school until July 1st of 19 or thereafter.
Right, which was what was in the plan.
Yeah, which we don't have to worry about because even if you did get construction monies.
Right, and Director
immediately,
you guys all did talk about that.
Okay, just want to make sure I recorded that.
Yep.
Now, sagebrush. Sagebrush, we talked about it's a 0.4. This is a commission-directed component project. And so sagebrush is in there at a little over $6 million to address the low condition scores of 1 and 2s and any associated systems directly correlating to those corrections. And then that was requested to be immediate, but I'm pretty sure that was taken out according to Dell this morning.
Oh, the immediate stuff got cut?
Yeah.
I guess.
So you would have to basically get it July 1, you have to work on it, and then the next summer, but you wouldn't have enough time.
Can you put the RFP out March 1st?
If it gets appropriate, we'll know. You could start the RFP, we couldn't, and then in July when it comes, you finish it out, yeah.
But it would be
your designer, and even on our recs, we said these district component, or the commission directed components, not to make those effective immediately, because you're talking a $6 million job. If you're doing like a modular, okay, you can do.
But you're not, even if we started March 1st, you're not building July 1st.
That's what, we talked to them, and
This is going to be
it's a project.
It's a difficult project, and I'd like to look at doing design build, and it's not going to be one season. It's going to be a couple of seasons.
Hopefully it comes through.
We can do design build.
It's in statute.
It's in statute, we don't have a contract,
We don't have a contract.
Mr. Contract Master.
Well, I thought that's part of the bills working through.
It is. Well, the design build part did. That was the elimination. We'd have to take it up through the commission,
But it's basically a CMA or we want to leave those anyway, so anyway, we'll have those discussions.
Okay, so, and not to go through this extensively, but there was a budgeting sheet filled out at the very end. We hired FEA to go through and actually evaluate sagebrush, look at all the 1 and 2 scores, system related. When the bottom line is it equaled 6.14, almost $6.2 million. It has to do with designs in there, construction, contingency, owner's overhead, all that stuff is in there. And then I also included down here just a breakdown of FEAs. They actually took each system and broke down kind of a scope of project, or the scope of the project. So, and this is, if it's approved, if it's appropriated, your PM will work directly with you. You guys will hire an architect in a way you'll go to explore how to do this and meet the needs of remedy sagebrush. Okay? So that's going to be a long process. Any questions on that? So this is just illustrative, and you guys again will get into the details if appropriate. Any other questions on that? Just so you know, there's a little over $6 million in your way if approved by the legislature.
Be a good thing.
Yep, great. Okay, Brandon.
Okay, so we just touched on House Bill 32. That was a major maintenance one. That didn't make it, or that fizzled out. 33 was statute cleanup on emergency funds, which included the word facility, which is in statute includes the site. So ironically, you're talking about
And that passed, or it's still in there?
It just left the House side. So it just went to the committee at noon, yeah. So it goes to the floor, it goes through the readings. 63 was trying to keep Wyoming people employed. Raise the bar, it died on workforce services stuff. 65 was eliminating the threshold on design build. It 88 is creating the third division for operations. And all that is, man, we have school facilities, SFD, and operations. So people like me that work on both, everybody in here works on both sides. Bob could get shipped off to a hospital building project because he's really in hospital or something. The director can put the key resources right. Then Joint Resolution 3 was who's going to pay for schools out to the voters. And then on the capital bill, on the Senate side, they've cut everything except the component stuff and the leases. And on the House side, they funded everything and added some. So the question I would have of you, are you guys talking to Burns on the alt school?
Oh, yeah. I met with them last night.
Cool.
And Kenner, our representative.
Yeah. And now onto the supplemental budget. Let's see, would you guys say if design funds for John C. Sheridan School is appropriated in March, we may want to request funding for construction. Okay. So it says emergency or unanticipated only for the general session.
Well, that includes supplemental.
It's a supplemental. They tell you what to do. And then in addition to that, so the process is they say, hey, agencies, don't come to us with a bunch of stuff. It's emergency or unanticipated. Then what we also get the letter from the governor in April saying no emergencies, or just emergencies only. So they're trying to narrow it down for the general session to be emergency.
Well, the city and the county get supplemental funds. It's a different kind of supplemental.
Probably, yeah. There's some that trickle out, but this isn't hardly anything.
So when we think supplemental, think unanticipated emergency.
Yeah.
That's just fine.
So the question would be,
does it make sense to ask for John C. Shipper design in supplemental just to
because the lease?
Because the lease, and just even if we think it's not going to make it, you're throwing it out there and getting it going again. And then when the money's better, you get design and construction all together.
So let's do this. So Scott, you're online here. District is requesting if
John C. Shipper is not appropriated for design, does not receive a design appropriation. Then district will wait for budget session or district for request and a supplemental.
I think we request supplemental. Otherwise, we're waiting 2 years.
Yeah, you're out 1 more year plus another year plus construction another year. So that means your lease would have to be at least another 4 years long to 5 years. By the time you get done with the project, you get the door open.
Which is the cost of the design.
In inflation?
Pretty much.
Could be. Don't know.
What I'm going to do here, guys, I'm being real careful here. So, Scott, you're on board with this. You guys are asking if it isn't approved in the biennial. You are asking, knowing the definition of what qualifies, you are asking for design funds in the supplemental. Is that correct?
So what is the definition of that?
Right. I'm sorry if you can't see it. I had it right here. I highlighted it yellow. It says the School Facilities Commission shall submit a supplemental budget periods during that general session for any emergency or unanticipated need or any refinement or modifications of project funded under this section.
So really, for us, it applies as an emergency or unanticipated. We do anticipate it. We just weren't unable to get the appropriations. To pay for a lease for another 4 years, assuming we can find a place.
Oh, you're saying that's the design, because you're at 90,
okay,
right?
$90,000 a year for.
Okay, let's say,
another 5 years.
So let's say this then. Is this fair?
That's $500,000.
The district's asking for funding of design or funding for design. Design due to the
annual lease payment.
that's not a reason. I think more due to the,
Uncertainty of
Uh,
having
there we go. Uncertainty of the availability of continuing, here we go, of continuing the lease at the college.
Oh, yeah.
Or with
Are
college.
you okay with that, Scott?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, and so I'm a little squirrely about it. I mean, I feel a little bit uncomfortable about that, but here's the deal. Our director has to make the final, right, call, and I'm sure he'll work with whoever he needs to. So, we're putting it in here. You've asked us to put it in here. No guarantees on our part. Dell will see this, right? And, it will be considered. We got that?
That is in our notes.
Okay, good. All right, anything else there?
I don't think so.
Okay, good. And then I put down here also, even though it's not directly related to the supplemental budget, district will be approaching the commission for emergency funds to address slope issues at the JHS. I just put it here. Yeah. Sorry, big Goose Creek. They really do have geese in there. They have turkeys that go across that thing too.
It's because of Goose Mountain.
Next to big Goose Creek. Okay, are we good here?
Yeah. So on the budget request, no,
Yeah, I should say for, I'll say for already appropriated, right? This isn't for new, like in the
Yeah.
supplemental, just, I'll just put it
so I have some thoughts. One, on the alternative school, I think it's a stretch. Just reading this and knowing the process over the last few years, we're gonna get the letter says no. Because what you don't wanna do as a director is take a $200 million budget to the governor and then have him cut everything. That doesn't look very good. Just thinking of this, so I don't know on that, that's a stretch.
Well, let's see what the director thinks.
Yeah. On this emergency deal, the statute specifically says for emergencies or unanticipated. And what we did, what was the one with the roof structural? And it needed like $3 million. Lovell? So Lovell had
Run.
it got appropriated last session.
Oh,
It's Lovell Kitchen, right?
oh, yeah, the kitchen.
Okay.
Yes.
So what we did there is they had, so what you could do, this is another scenario, is you use major maintenance to put a Band-Aid on it. And then you go to the legislature, because that's how emergency is written. It's not like, hey, we'll fund everything to give you the Cadillac. It's like you put a Band-Aid on it, and then you go to the legislature. That fits the level process and all the
I
statutes.
got you. So
So you say, hey, the consultants that do wherever, Denver or something. He says, hey man, 200 grand, and then you get, but you need 1.5, and we will Cadillac this thing so we're done. Then you go to the legislature, and then you get the full enchilada.
So I will tell you, we've already got that answer. There is no Band-Aid. But I think I know what you're saying. It's a for example.
Yeah.
You and I will visit. We'll figure out the
Well,
right way.
Right, and again, maybe first step is design, right? And maybe design will show, I mean, should, out of design should come a better.
Another thing to keep in mind is the city's leading the charge. We're partnering with the city. And so we've got an MOU in place right now that protects us for this initial fact-finding stuff. And they can't spend another dollar of ours until we do a new MOU. So we're protected.
Type deal?
Yeah, we're protected.
And they're ponying up too?
Well, they've got failures on their property, so they have. So the way we could have done it is the school district fixes their side and the city fixes theirs, and it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
It's a global failure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Team up.
them leading the charge, and then I'm right in the front leading the charge with them because I kind of have a background in this kind of stuff. So I'll explain it more at the open session, and I'll send Bob my presentation before. Okay, because obviously I think people are going to say you didn't fix it already. Well, yeah, we did. This is more.
Yeah, what'd you do with the first $500,000?
Good.
You know, I would like to, especially since the director is going to review this, at that unique issues or a comment by the district is we support the maintenance software. What is it called now, Bill? Brandon?
CMMS.
CMMS.
Yeah, Computer Maintenance Management System.
We support the implementation of CMMS. Especially if you don't. Even if you don't. It's,
All right. Okay, district. I did put here that slope issue, Brandon, from June 15. I just put what was actually discussed, you know, what was presented, rules and regs, state statute, whatever, potential consequences, our recommendation, the commission's recommended motion, and then the actual motion itself that occurred. I just put that right in the facility plan for historical reasons. Okay?
That's good.
So with that, district, before we close our meeting, anything else that we have not discussed or you'd like to discuss further before we close?
I don't think so.
Covered.
Okay,
I'm good.
staff? Good. Good. Okay, with that then, thank you so much for joining us on the video conference. You didn't say a lot, but hopefully you were able to hear okay.
Yep.
Well, for the most part, yes. It sounded a little bit like you were underwater a couple of times.
Oh, that was me filling up my water bottle.
Ah, okay.
Okay, that sounds great. Hey, thank you for joining us. We'll go ahead and end the meeting. Take care.
All right, thank
guys
you.
too. Thanks again.
You bet.